After Ran Wujiu lost both parents. The Jia family is envious and intends to forcibly occupy the property. After Ran Wujiu's angry counterattack, he failed. But as a result, he offended Jia Dongxu's master, Zhonghai, the heavenly sovereign of morality. Zhonghai secretly used methods to tarnish the reputation of Ran Wujiu. It also collaborates with other animals in the courtyard to find faults everywhere, using excuses to oppress Ran Wujiu. Let him sweep the snow from the entire courtyard while he is tired, until losing one's life. Ran Wujiu, who had traveled through time, carried a broken main god space small plane that stored countless supplies. We decisively embarked on the path of counterattack. The first step is to casually make a combustion bottle, thrown into the bedroom of the Moral Heavenly Sovereign. The second step, Ran Wujiu looked at Jia Dongxu, who came to find fault with his friends. He remembers that when this person appeared, it was just a photo, right? Should I just order to send him to the wall earlier? Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Bullying by Animals and Fighting Back. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. Ran Wujiu woke up from his coma and opened his eyes to take a look. Lying on a small heated kong. Above is a small green tile roof. The bare blue brick walls and black painted beams. The room is not big, and there is a wooden chair placed next to the heated kong. The chair is leaning against a desk. There is still a thick porcelain bowl on the desk. The bowl is still steaming hot. Ran Wujiu looked at the bowl and suddenly felt his mouth dry and his stomach rumbling and beating. This is starving. I don't know how long I've been unconscious. Ran Wujiu sat up with his body propped up. My whole body is sore. Holding back the pain, he reached out to take the bowl and looked at it. It's a bowl of hybrid congee cooked with rice and corn flour. How many more beans are there? Ran Wujiu was moved. This is June 1st. The whole country of China is in an era of chaos. Not to mention rice and corn flour, many people still rely on wild vegetables cooked with coarse flour to make a paste. Rice and white noodles can only be eaten during the Chinese New Year. Ran Wujiu raised his head, poured congee into his throat and whispered to himself. Just wash this bowl of congee. Rainwater will be his own sister in the future. Feel the warm porridge down your throat, bringing you warmth and comfort. Ran Wujiu recalled the incident before his original coma. The situation of Ran Wujiu, who is full of birds in the world, is really unlucky. His parents are both intellectuals who work as technicians in a steel rolling mill. I only gave birth to Ran Wujiu after being over 40 years old, so I doted on him very much. That's really in my palm and in my mouth. Ran Wujiu was protected too well by the two of them, and his personality was quite naive and inexperienced. Even so, it doesn't matter. As a result, unexpected circumstances arose, and the elderly couple had an accident while supporting national development. Both died in service. Ran Wujiu suddenly became an orphan. And without the shelter of my parents. The beasts in the courtyard also began to attack him. The first to bear the brunt is the Jia family, which runs their household with filial piety. The Jia family has had a difficult time these years. Initially, in order to occupy the rural collective household registration, grain could be distributed at a lower price. The household registrations of Jiazhang and Qinhuairu were delayed and deliberately not relocated to the courtyard. Unexpectedly, in 1958, the country first reclaimed rural land and turned it into collective ownership, shifting from distributing grain according to household registration to dividing grain according to work. At the same time, the state has also promulgated new regulations on the management of registered residents. Registered residence transfer is no longer allowed. At this moment, Jiazhang and Qinhuai felt embarrassed. Their household registration is located in their respective rural areas. But they cannot bear to live in the city and are unwilling to go back to work. There will be no division of labor and no distribution of grain. In the city, their family of 5 only has one household registration, Jia Dongxu. You can receive tickets and exchange food according to your strong labor force. The whole family of 5 lives on Jia Dongxu's own rations. Encountering a large-scale food shortage in the past 3 years, if it weren't for the frequent assistance of Zhonghai, 2 people could have starved to death. Plus, the meme is already 9 years old and getting older. Xiao Dang is almost 4 years old. The Jia family's housing has become increasingly tense. Jia Zhang would drool whenever she passed by the front yard and looked at the house of the Ran family. Bad water keeps surging in my mind. When dividing the house, both intellectuals in the Ran family were technicians. The factory naturally needs to be taken care of as the front yard is not well located, so the area is given enough. There are 2 large main rooms and a 5 or 6 square hanging ear room as the kitchen. In Jia Zhang's view, this house should be entirely for his Jia family. In addition, the inheritance left by the elderly couple of the Ran family, such as pensions, is a huge sum of money. Everyone should be surnamed Jia. Jia Zhang not only dares to think, but also dares to act. She really just sat in front of Ran Wujiu one day. Speak with an old face. You are an orphan without parents, and you are not ashamed to occupy 2 large rooms. From today on, you can move to the adjacent ear room. These 2 rooms belong to our Jia family. Ran Wujiu was dumbfounded to hear that Jia Zhang would say such strange things. He doesn't know much about the Jia Zhang family, and if it's even more bizarre, he'll be here soon. Jia Dongxu didn't react to Ran Wujiu and thought he didn't dare to resist him, which made him even more proud. Pointing to the portrait of Ran Wujiu's parents on the wall of the inner room, he spoke. Also, remember to throw away the photos of your dead parents. Hanging such a thing is so unlucky. The young men and women of Ran Wujiu, aged 16 or 17, are grieving for their parents' departure. Can you hear what Jia Zhang said? Picking up a stool, I opened a ladle for Jia Zhang. He caused trouble with this move. Upon learning that Jia Zhang had been beaten, Jia Dongxu came to his door and beat up Ran Wujiu wildly. Even the house was smashed. Not to mention that, I also found his master. The moral deity of the quadrangle courtyard comes from Zhonghai. Zhonghai is a typical character who helps relatives but doesn't care, and plays moral kidnapping in a tangled way. Faced with the request of the designated elderly care candidate Jia Dongxu, of course, it was a deviation. He first set aside the fact that Jia Zhang wanted to forcibly occupy the Ran family's house. Ran Wujiu's inappropriate language in beating the old man caught the others in the courtyard. Then he slapped the table and ordered Ran Wujiu to compensate Jia Zhang for his medical expenses. Please vacate the 2 main room seats for compensation to the Jia family. Although Ran Wujiu is innocent, he is not foolish. At first glance, this so-called Mr. E is wearing the same pants as the Jia family. I knocked on the door of the street office director overnight. Zhonghai never expected that Ran Wujiu would not play according to his routine. I went straight to the street office. Facing Director Wang's door questioning, Zhonghai quickly changed his mind. Saying that he just feels that Ran Wujiu should not have beaten the old man. The so-called vacating the house for the Jia family was just a scare to Ran Wujiu. I want him to know that he shouldn't hit people casually. Finally, I patted my chest and promised that no one would be allowed to occupy Ran Wujiu's house. Director Wang nodded and let him go. I went to the Jia family again and scolded Jia Zhang severely. Zhang Cuihua, it's you again. At first, you were greedy for taking advantage of your rural household registration, but now the whole family relies on your son's household registration to make a living. Are you still thinking of occupying someone else's house now? What's wrong with you? Jia Dongxu hid in the corner, Noa dared not speak, but instead Jia Dongxu accompanied his smiling face. Director Wang, my mother is also because our home is too small. Look, the 5 of us are squeezed together in this small room of about 40 square meters. Who's that strange? Director Wang didn't take his trick and frowned and stared. The 3 members of Lao Ran's family have a total area of less than 80 square meters. On average, one person is around 30. Old Ran and his wife died on duty, and it is only natural for the house to be left to little Ran. On the contrary, it's your Jia family. Only your Jia Dongxu has a household registration in Nanluoga Lane. According to the household registration, one person occupies a room of over 40 square meters, which is considered large. If you're not satisfied, I'll exchange it for a smaller one for you. Jia Dongxu's face turned pale with fear and he waved his hands in panic. Don't, Director Wang, it's us who are confused. We were wrong. Zhonghai quickly followed suit and pleaded for mercy. Director Wang finally calmed down. When you come to my house 5 times in the 3rd year of junior high school and ask me to move your household registration, you won't move. Devoted to taking advantage of the country. When national policies come down, I regret losing my urban household registration. You deserve it, don't be a demon or cause trouble for me in the future, otherwise you, Zhang Suihua and Qinhuairu, should be sent back to your hometown and go back to your hometown. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 2. Zhonghai's Cruel Methods. You are listening at novel full.audio. The Jia family's attempt to forcibly occupy Ran Wujiu's house was resolved in this way. Ran Wujiu was beaten and his home was smashed. In exchange for a few verbal apologies from Jia Dongxu. Unfair, but also helpless. Ran Wujiu was young and had no one to support him, making him weak and powerless. It's not a match for Zhonghai and the Jia family at all. I can only hold back this breath. He took over from his parents and became a worker in the steel mill. I am determined to work hard, earn more money, and have the opportunity to move out of a courtyard house in the future. After all, if it doesn't provoke me, I can still avoid it. But what he didn't know was that he was completely hated by Zhonghai. Zhonghai is a smiling tiger, with a high reputation on the surface. In fact, the desire for control is extremely strong, and the mind is even smaller than the tip of a needle. Director Wang of the street came to criticize this matter, which was seen as a great shame by Zhonghai. After all, as usual, he always speaks his mind in a courtyard house, whatever he says. Ran Wujiu, however, insisted on bringing the street office director to come and slap him in the face. If it were someone else, it would be fine. There are always people in this world who you can't afford to provoke. Ran Wujiu is just a helpless orphan. Dare to be right with yourself. Every time Zhonghai thinks of this, he bites his teeth with a loud bang. If we don't clean up Ran Wujiu, everyone will follow his example and go to the street to handle anything in the future. Can anyone still respect me and hold me? Where is one's authority? What are the benefits? How can I still establish a foothold in a courtyard house? Without the status of a master with 9 words, he is a helpless and lonely old man. How could he abandon the tiger skin that he had finally sewn up for himself? Moreover, at that time, Ran Wujiu was young and reckless, unable to resist in front of Director Wang. Shouted Zhonghai and said, "I am out of business." This sentence directly hit the pain point of Zhonghai. Let Zhonghai make up his mind to deal with Ran Wujiu. The most direct way, of course, is to make the number 1 crazy dog you raise silly. Thoroughly repair Ran Wujiu, preferably by breaking his legs or something. Naturally, it can intimidate everyone. But the front foot was just refuted by Ran Wujiu. The retaliatory attitude of letting silly Zhu take action with his hind legs is a bit too obvious. Ran Wujiu is not a fool either. If he goes to the street office or even the work safety bureau to cause trouble again, it's difficult to explain on Director Wang's face. So this time we need to take action quietly and without suspicion. Zhonghai quickly came up with a plan. He first used his identity as an 8th-level worker, intentionally spreading rumors of Ran Wujiu's moral corruption and beating the elderly in the factory. Let Ran Wujiu's image plummet and be excluded by workers who do not know the truth. Then bribe the workshop director where Ran Wujiu is located and exclude him from doing miscellaneous work, not allowing him the opportunity to learn technology. He deliberately found some idle workers to tease Ran Wujiu every now and then, to find fault and conflict with him. When Ran Wujiu got into a fight with these people, he stepped forward to pull the trigger. Let Ran Wujiu bear the blame, be punished, and be punished. Ran Wujiu is young after all. How could I have imagined that Zhonghai could be so ruthless and ruin his entire life? Unconsciously, I fell for the trick. It didn't take 6 months like this. Ran Wujiu became a disliked underachiever in the steel rolling mill. Violent, loves to fight, and has been punished several times. Although I won't be fired, I won't be able to continue working in the workshop in the end. Under the bribe of Zhonghai, the workshop director assigned Ran Wujiu to the feeding group. The feeding team can be said to be the toughest position in the entire steel rolling plant. Responsible for unloading, handling, and the heavy work of feeding materials. You should know that this is a steel rolling mill. The unloaded material is the ore and coal from the entire vehicle. The weight is measured in tons. And it rotates continuously for 24 hours. It's like taking a day off from work. But you may not be able to finish work on time. After all, the steel furnace over there is waiting for you to cut the ore. It's impossible to say that you'll stop working halfway through the unloading time. The level of hardship in this job can be summed up in a simple sentence. There are no feeders over 40 years old. Ran Wujiu worked in the feeding group for half a year. Tired like a dog every day. Even so, Zhonghai didn't let him go. In the courtyard, Zhonghai would criticize Ran Wujiu every time he held a meeting. He said his poor performance at the steel rolling mill has affected the reputation of others in the courtyard. Punish him to clean the courtyard. Everyone knows that this is Zhonghai retaliating. No one is willing to stand up for Ran Wujiu. This time, Ran Wujiu traveled here because of this. He worked tirelessly unloading materials at the steel rolling mill for a whole day. I haven't had a chance to rest when I returned to the yard in the early morning. Zhonghai found fault and asked him to shovel away the snow in the courtyard, to prevent everyone from falling. Ran Wujiu is too tired. He wants to rest first and then take action in the afternoon. Ignored. Zhonghai is trying to torture him. How could he miss this opportunity? Immediately stopped everyone from holding a meeting. Put on a serious and sincere attitude, saying that you are thinking for the safety of everyone in the courtyard. Let Ran Wujiu shovel the snow. Unexpectedly, he didn't take it seriously and didn't take everyone's life safety to heart. Refused to serve everyone. Most people in quadrangles actually don't care when to shovel snow. But Zhonghai intentionally guided the other two masters. Making Lu Haizhong feel that Ran Wujiu was disobedient was a provocation to his own dignity as an uncle. As for Yan Bugue, if Ran Wujiu shovels the snow, his family can save labor. Also following in the footsteps of Zhonghai, Jia Dongxu and Jia Zhongxu are pushing the waves on the side. Finally, surrounded by 3 gentlemen and a group of people who joined in to liven up, Jia Dongxu stepped forward and pulled Ran Wujiu off the Kong. Zhonghai had a serious expression on his face and immediately asked him to shovel the snow off the 3 courtyards. Otherwise, let him look good. Ran Wujiu is helpless and unable to provoke public anger. I had to drag my tired body, cold and hungry, to start shoveling snow. It was finally shoveled to the courtyard. Jia Dongxu's mother, Jia Zhang, is a schadenfreude. Specially moved a stool to watch in front of the house. The mouth was still full of strange and impure chatter. After chattering for a while, I finally got up and went to the bathroom outside the yard. Ran Wujiu was tired, hungry, and angry, holding his breath and unable to recover. As soon as his eyes turned black, he fell head-on in the snow. When he lay in the snow, feeling his body slightly stiff. Suddenly, a head appeared in front of me, and it turned out to be He rainwater. Ran Wujiu only had time to reach out his hand to He rainwater, without saying a word of help. I just passed out in a coma. Then it was crossed over by the later generation of Ran Wujiu. At this moment, when he woke up, Ran Wujiu could tell from a glance. I should be in He rainwater's house now. Just thinking about it. The door creaked lightly, and He rainwater pushed it open and walked in. Ran Wujiu, who has already sat up with the porridge bowl. He rainwater reached out and wiped his flushed nose, exhaling a mouthful of mist. To Ran Wujiu's delight, he said, "You're awake. Wake up, thank you very much for saving my life." Ran Wujiu put down the bowl and nodded at He rainwater. By the way, I looked up and down at my life.Saving benefactor. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 3. Xiao Ran's flying axe, powerfully chopping animals and birds. You are listening at novel full.audio. He rainwater should be around 15 or 16 years old this year. He is quite tall, with 2 braids and big eyes. But she is very thin, with no flesh on her cheeks and a pointed chin. He is probably wearing a big cotton jacket that was replaced by a silly pillar. It's clearly a circle larger. The neck stretched out alone from the wide collar. The sleeves are too long, covering both hands. The pants are short again, with 2 large patches on the knees and a thin leg exposed below. Wrapped in coarse cloth socks. Wearing a pair of black cotton shoes on his feet, the toe of the shoes had worn holes. Upon hearing Ran Wujiu's gratitude, He rainwater sucked in his breath and frowned. "Hi, I can't just watch you freeze to death in the courtyard." She looked at Ran Wujiu and said, "You're stubborn enough to show off. When they leave for work, you can go back to sleep." She suddenly smiled, shook her head and stopped mentioning this matter, asking Ran Wujiu, "What are your plans next? Are you planning?" Ran Wujiu blurted out without even thinking. "Of course, I killed these king's eggs." Ran Wujiu received his original body and memory. Naturally, one can also deeply feel their original inner self. The surging hatred that was entrenched. Ran Wujiu knew that if he died today, it would be fine. Since they haven't died, these beasts will continue to harm themselves in the future. And in the future, these animals will also harm many people. Ran Wujiu made up his mind. This group of animals should be eliminated one by one. We can't let them giggle too easily yet. They must endure all the sins and hardships they can endure in order to relieve the hatred that remains in their hearts. As soon as he spoke, Ran Wujiu suddenly realized that He rainwater in front of him was the sister of the silly pillar, the god of war in the courtyard. It seems that she still has a good relationship with Qin Huairu and has been trying to match up with silly Zhu and Qin Widow. If I speak in front of her, if she tells Qin Widow or Zhonghai. So thinking of this, Ran Wujiu looked up at He rainwater. Unexpectedly, a strange smile appeared on He Yushui's face. I found Ran Wujiu looking at her. The smile on He rainwater's face immediately disappeared again. Then it was like not hearing Ran Wujiu's words. Nod calmly. "Since you're okay now, let's go back to your own home. It's not that I want to drive you away, I'm afraid my brother will come back and see you later." That person. He rainwater curled his lips and said, "If I hit you, I can't stop it. Don't break you again." Ran Wujiu nodded and said thank you to Siheyuan. I got off the Kong, put on my old rubber shoes, and walked out the door. The sky had just turned slightly yellow, and the sun was setting in the west. It was already evening. I was actually unconscious for a whole day. Ran Wujiu gritted his teeth secretly, walking towards his front yard while pondering. If it weren't for rainwater extending a helping hand, he might have been lying in the snow for more than 10 hours like this. Not only the original body, but I estimate that I have already stepped on my horse and become stiff. These beasts are really tough. Returning to his own room, Ran Wujiu quickly began to light the stove. Make a fire while pondering. Although I haven't directly dealt with the beasts in the courtyard yet. But from the experience of the original body, one can feel that what later generations said about the poultry-filled quadrangle is truly true. A courtyard of birds and beasts. The only thing that he couldn't figure out was what the rain was. This person is currently around 16 years old and doesn't have much plot in the original drama. It seems like a tool person character who matches Siheyuan and Qin Widow. Today's performance gave Ran Wujiu a feeling that she was hiding some unknown thoughts. However, Ran Wujiu himself couldn't say exactly what that was. There's no way he will become a social animal in his later life, just fishing or occasionally watching short videos to relieve boredom. My understanding of this bird-filled world is mostly gained through short video explanations and the like. Just focus on the entanglements between those main characters. I really don't have any special impression of the character Rainwater. Just now I blurted out harsh words in front of her. Why did she seem to smile? Ran Wujiu scratched his head, feeling somewhat uncertain. At that time, Rainwater seemed to have smiled, right? What does it mean? Laughing at me for overestimating my abilities. You can't just appreciate me, can you? Ran Wujiu frowned and pondered as he lit the stove. I'm thinking about it. The door clanged and was rudely kicked open. A tall and sturdy figure walked in. It is the top moral deity in the courtyard, Zhonghai. He is only in his early 40s this year, with high skills and good treatment. From the factory director to the workers, they all hold it in their hands. In the courtyard, there is even more power and authority. It can be said that life is smooth and career is successful. Apart from the pain point of going bankrupt, there is nothing wrong with it. Moreover, he had already planned for his own flaw. And Ran Wujiu, who had poked this pain point in the beginning, is now half dead by himself. It can be said that there is no hope for a lifetime. Zhonghai also demonstrated his authority and strength to others in the courtyard through this. This morning, Ran Wujiu was tasked with sweeping the snow for the courtyard house, taking advantage of public opinion. It also made Zhonghai savor it all day long. Remembering the smoothness and strength of one's own means. Even rushing back to the courtyard from work early, ready to enjoy the pleasure of success by looking at the clean courtyard. Unexpectedly, as soon as he entered the hospital, he met Jia Zhang and ran to him to complain. She said she had been monitoring Ran Wujiu shoveling snow all morning. I didn't expect her to go to the restroom and come back. Ran Wujiu disappeared and didn't see anyone for a whole day. No one shoveled the snow in the middle and backyard, causing her to almost fall. She seemed to have seen Ran Wujiu come back just now. What are you tinkering with at home? After speaking, he also pointed to Ran Wujiu's home in the front yard. Upon hearing Jia Zhang's words, Zhonghai was furious and immediately came up. Heart said that Ran Wujiu is so brave. He dared not listen to the orders given by himself and the whole court. I've been treated like a ghost by myself for over a year now, yet I dare to resist. It seems that I started too lightly. Zhonghai thought with a calm face. He took 3 or 2 steps and rushed to the door of Ran Wujiu's house. Lifting his leg, he kicked open the door of Ran Wujiu's house. Looking up, as expected, Ran Wujiu was squatting in front of the stove and starting a fire. You. Zhonghai stepped into the house with a calm face and staring. Open your mouth and teach Ran Wujiu a lesson. Unexpectedly, Ran Wujiu reached out and grabbed something from beside him, throwing it towards Zhonghai. Before entering the door, Zhonghai pondered for a while in his heart how to teach Ran Wujiu a lesson. I didn't expect them to take action directly. Quickly shrink your neck and turn your body to avoid it. Watching a black figure with a howling wind fly past my eyes. The door panel slammed into the back and fell with a loud bang. Unexpectedly, he stood firmly on the threshold. Zhonghai took a closer look and then realized. It's actually an axe. The snowy axe blade was half embedded on the threshold. The grip still trembles slightly. Did you just brush past such a murder weapon? Zhonghai felt a sudden burst of cold sweat all over his body. If I hadn't avoided it just now. Isn't this axe directly embedded in oneself? Just throw the axe when you meet. Isn't Ran Wujiu finally driven crazy by himself? Thinking of this, Zhonghai, who was still in shock, raised his eyes again and looked at Ran Wujiu. I saw Ran Wujiu squatting by the fireplace. The firelight illuminated his face with a strange orange-yellow color. My eyes were shining brightly in the dimly lit room. The tongue licked over the lips, revealing a pair of big white teeth with a grin. Watching Zhonghai show a strange smile. Which king should I be kicking my door? So it's you, an old spendthrift. What's up? What's up with me? Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 4. First, pay a sum of interest, and the larger one will come later. You are listening at novel full.audio. Zhonghai was frightened by Ran Wujiu's flying axe. Startled and restless. Even the words Wang Ba Dan and Lao Ju Hu in Ran Wujiu's mouth were automatically omitted. Open your mouth and stare. I started stuttering when speaking. You. Ran Wujiu stood up and said, what are you? If you have anything to say, just say you have pee and let it go. I'm busy and don't have time to nag you. Zhonghai finally regained his senses. It's embarrassing to realize that I was so scared by Ran Wujiu that I couldn't even speak. Thinking back to just now, Ran Wujiu called himself an extinct household. My face suddenly turned red. Staring at Ran Wujiu with a single finger. You're so brave. If you don't shovel the snow, you dare to throw an axe and hurt someone. Do you still have me, Mr. E, in your eyes? Is there any royal law? Ran Wujiu was overjoyed and said, I don't know what you mean by Wang Fa, old and unemployed. What era is it now? Are you saying this to rebel? Great, I'll go find Gong'an and have them eliminate you, the old villain. Upon hearing this, Zhonghai waved his hand repeatedly and quickly cleared it off. Nonsense, I was just momentarily in a hurry and my mouth was quick. Don't be too far-fetched there. He quickly changed the topic. What I want to say is that the resolution passed by the whole hospital this morning requires you to shovel snow. Why didn't you shovel halfway? I command you to immediately shovel the snow. Besides, you're using an axe to intentionally injure me. I still have to punish you, from now on until the snow stops. You are responsible for removing all the snow in the courtyard, have you heard it clearly? Zhonghai glared angrily and gave a fierce order. Ran Wujiu pouted. I heard it clearly. Zhonghai was about to nod when he saw Ran Wujiu laughing. Then he said, I heard you clearly, this old man, putting dog pee there. You also ordered me, I think you have senile dementia. What qualifications do you have as an old and desperate household to give orders? As for chopping you, you deserve it. I'll stay at my own house well, you don't say hello. Just kick my door. I thought there was a bandit. After all, who is a good person who kicks in without saying hello. Don't say I didn't kill you, I deserve to kill you, an old and desperate man. Get out of here. If you want to shovel snow, you can step on your horse and shovel it yourself. It's nothing to do with me. Zhonghai listened to Ran Wujiu, who was a retired household. Angered, my whole body stood up with sweat and hair. Step forward and slap the table. You meddle and pester me, I am the master of this courtyard house, and I have the right to take care of you. If I ask you to go to the snow, you have to shovel it. Oh. Is that right? Ran Wujiu spared no expense in addressing him. Then I'll go to the street office and ask Director Wang carefully. Does this courtyard master have that right? It can support the neighbor's production labor. Even openly oppressing the orphans of meritorious officials. He almost froze to death in the courtyard. Ran Wujiu stared at Zhonghai. You're an old spendthrift, you still want to use me as a hammer, right? I'll go find Director Wang and see what she says. What? Zhonghai suddenly stopped speaking. Almost froze to death in the courtyard. Jia Zhang didn't tell me this. He looked at Ran Wujiu and suddenly understood. By the way, something must have happened during the morning snow plowing. Almost killed Ran Wujiu. He finally couldn't help it anymore. Determined to make a big fuss out of the situation by killing the fish and breaking the net. At first, this kid used the trick of finding the street office director to solve the problem of Jia Zhaqiang occupying the house. Zhonghai secretly spat at Jia Zhang in his heart. There is more to success than failure. I can't explain clearly what needs to be said. What a pig's brain. Just as Ran Wujiu said. I almost froze to death while shoveling snow. He wouldn't have come knocking so aggressively. As the saying goes, even a rabbit in a hurry will bite a person. Besides, Ran Wujiu is such a big living person. I'm almost being forced to death, I definitely have to work hard. Ran Wujiu's parents were originally in response to the national call. Sacrificed while supporting the local area and helping build the factory. The party committee and street office director of the steel rolling mill. At that time, we came to a courtyard together. Ran Wujiu was awarded a pension from his parents and a certificate of commendation for his contributions in aid construction. Now Ran Wujiu really feels like he can't survive being forced. Take this certificate and hand it over to Gongan or the steel rolling mill. Saying to file a complaint. Even if his reputation is bad now, someone must come out to investigate. At that time, it was not easy for him to cover the lid. After all, what he did was not very clever either. Unable to withstand any investigation. Thinking of this, Zhonghai reached out and wiped his face. A face full of self-blame. What? Almost killed someone. Hi, why didn't you tell me earlier? Xiao, Grandpa Yi is not bullying you. The reason why you are asked to work harder is to train you. As a young person, you should. Ran Wujiu waved his hand and said, don't do this. He stood up and walked outside. I'll go find Director Wang right now. Zhonghai grabbed him from behind. Don't say, this guy is truly an 8th level fitter. I have a lot of strength on hand. Don't be impulsive, Xiao. If you have anything to say, feel free to say it. Ran Wujiu looked back and pursed his lips. What's there to say? I almost froze to death, I have to find someone to uphold justice for me. That's what he said, but Ran Wujiu still didn't move his feet. Zhonghai is so clever, I immediately understood. This requires conditions and benefits. It seems that this foolish young man has really grown up during this period of time. However, Zhonghai is not worried. As long as Ran Wujiu doesn't cause trouble. Within the scope of the courtyard and the steel rolling mill, it is not a problem for Zhonghai. So he reached out and took out 5 yuan. Xiao, it was my fault just now that I didn't understand your situation clearly. Take this money and buy some delicious food to nourish your body. Pooh. Ran Wujiu looked at the brown 5 yuan banknote handed over by Zhonghai. Directly spit a mouthful of thick phlegm towards Zhonghai. Old man, you're playing tricks with me, right? Labor and management almost died outside, you sent me away for 5 yuan. He pretended to go out and said, I'll find Gong and to handle the matter fairly. Hey, don't do it. Zhonghai didn't care to wipe the phlegm off his body. Hold on to Ran Wujiu tightly. He was mentally prepared, and 5 yuan was just a probe. How much do you need to draw a path? Ran Wujiu was too lazy to tell Zhonghai that he still had more important things to do. So he raised his hand. 500, in cash. I'll just pretend nothing happened today. Ran Wujiu stared fiercely at Zhonghai and said, I won't bargain with you, just deliver it to me in a clumsy way. Otherwise, I will visit the street office, steel rolling mill, and work safety 3 places one by one. Now, get out of here. Ran Wujiu pointed to the door and issued an order to expel guests. Zhonghai stared at Ran Wujiu's face. I still want to struggle and say, Sharan. Ran Wujiu turned around and said, get out of here. Just say one more thing, I'll get 100 yuan. Okay, according to you, I'll go get you the money right away. Zhonghai is also straightforward. Knowing today's situation can only be considered a failure. 500 yuan is not a big deal for him. Turn your head immediately and leave. Arriving outside, Jia Zhang was standing under the eaves of Yan Bugui's house. Stretch your neck and look over here. Yan Bugui is holding a broken clay pot. Pretending to water his broken flower pots. In fact, a pair of eyes were raised, staring straight at the door of Ran Wujiu's family. Zhonghai thought for a moment and took a step over. Ignoring Jia and Zhang, he asked Yan Bugui. Old Yan, did Ran Wujiu have an accident in the yard today? Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 5. Cheating to your account, big guy's good day. You are listening at novel full.audio. Before Yan Bugui could speak, Jia Zhang, who was standing beside him, spoke first. What's going on? How come I don't know? She really doesn't know. Jia Zhang is idle and does not do household chores. In the morning, she watched Ran Wujiu shovel snow for a while. I went to the restroom outside and then gathered with several idle old ladies in the nearby alley. Share some gossip news about the yard. When she gets hungry at noon and returns to the courtyard. Ran Wujiu has been dragged into the house by rainwater and settled down. Jia Zhang thought it was Ran Wujiu who gave up halfway. That's why I filed a complaint with Zhonghai in the afternoon. At this moment, as soon as he heard that something had happened, his gossip immediately stirred up. Staring at Yan Bugui with burning eyes. Yan Bugui smiled lightly. Put down the broken clay pot in your hand. I did hear a few words from the neighbors in the courtyard. Did Ran Wujiu fall or fell into a coma? Later on, it seemed like the rain had taken the child away. I'm not sure about anything else. Zhonghai understood at a glance. Ran Wujiu really didn't deceive him. It's all the fault of this Jia Zhang family, the situation is unclear. If he had known about Ran Wujiu's experience earlier, he could have arranged it in advance. I would never be in a passive position like I am now. Thinking of this, Zhonghai gave Jia Zhang a fierce glare. Jia Zhang's face was innocent. What are you staring at me for? The problem. Zhonghai opened his mouth and wanted to say something, then thought about it. What do you have to say to someone like Jia Zhang? Do you still find today unlucky enough? What else is there to rain? Let Ran Wujiu freeze to death. What are you doing to save him? Zhonghai sighed and turned to go home to get the money. Fortunately, it's the end of the year and my family really has a sum of cash on hand. He counted 500 yuan. Carrying the money, he walked into Ran Wujiu's house again. Ran Wujiu is waiting. At first glance, Zhonghai came over with money. Lula said, "Hey, why do I always hear magpies chirping? It turns out that the beloved Mr. E has sent me money." Zhonghai had a black face and remained silent with his mouth curled. "What month has it been? Where did the magpies come from in Beiping City?" He placed a thick stack of black $10 bills on the table. Reached out and pressed half of it to prevent Ran Wujiu from taking it away. Staring at Ran Wujiu with his eyes, he said, "We've agreed that once we collect the money, we can't go to the street to handle it." Ran Wujiu nodded happily. "Don't worry, I'm different from you, an old man. I keep my word." Zhonghai's face turned red and his eyes widened. "You." Ran Wujiu apologized insincerely, "I'm sorry, it's just a passing remark. It's not an old household. Respected Mr. 1, okay. Let go, this money belongs to me now. Don't hold on to it." Zhonghai harbored a deep hatred. This kid apologized on the tip of his tongue, but in reality, he deliberately said something out of nowhere. But now he has no choice but to let go and turn around and leave. "If I stay any longer, I don't know how many times I will be scolded for going bankrupt." Sure enough, Ran Wujiu pulled his throat behind him to see off the guests. "Slow down, old man." "Ah no, Grandpa E." Zhonghai trembled with anger and returned home without saying a word. Aunt E is waiting for him. Just now, Zhonghai returned home with a pale face. "I found the box where the money was hidden and counted half of it before taking it away." Auntie looked at his gloomy face and hurried demeanor. "I held back and didn't ask." At this moment, his face seemed even uglier than before. "I want to ask him what he did with the money. Not very daring. I had no choice but to reach out and pick up my rice bowl, filling it with half a bowl of batter and handing it over." Zhonghai found a way to vent his anger. Grasping the bowl, it slammed onto the dining table with a bang. Click. My rice bowl was smashed. Zhonghai cursed loudly. The dog said, "Wang Ba Dan, an orphan without a mother's teachings, deserves to die for his parents." Auntie quickly closed the door. That night, Mr. E, who had been inspecting the entire courtyard after dinner, did not appear abnormally. Although everyone was a bit strange, they didn't think much. There isn't much nightlife these days either. After dinner, everyone tidied up and entered their dreams early on. Wait until 11 o'clock in the evening. The quadrangle courtyard is basically quiet with no one walking around. Ran Wujiu stood behind the door and carefully observed the outside for about 10 minutes, sticking to the crack of the door. After confirming that no one is around, I finally returned to the calm with peace of mind and pulled the blanket to cover myself. Silently murmured a sentence in the pitch black. Space expansion. It seems like a long time has passed, but it also feels like it's just an instant. Ran Wujiu's eyes lit up. It has changed from lying under the covers to being in a pile of ruins. A intermittent sound rang out in the void. Warning, detection of broken connection on the mating surface. Warning, invalid transmission coordinates detected. Warning, emergency response clauses are online. Warning, according to the emergency response clause, the system has entered a state of avoidance. Warning, please provide at least one administrator permission to enable self-check. Warning, no guild member provided permission detected. Detected that guild member number 9527 is online. Requesting self-inspection permission. Member 9527 has too low permissions. According to the emergency clause, guild member 9527 will be promoted to administrator. Welcome, administrator 9527. Please provide self-checking permissions. Ran Wujiu looked at the boundless ruins and frowned. The situation is more serious than he imagined. Such a large guild, it seems that apart from himself, there is not a single survivor. He ordered in his mind. Start self-check. Priority should be given to testing life support materials. Self-inspection started, current progress. 0.01%. Expected completion time. Undetermined. Ran Wujiu looked at the words, undecided, and felt a bit unlucky. He had actually traveled once before crossing to the world full of birds. Becoming a newcomer to a certain divine space. Because I performed well in beginner tasks. Being favored by a grand guild with nearly 10,000 people in the main god space. Joined this guild. But what he didn't expect was that he had just joined the guild. The upper echelons of this guild organized a plundering operation against a Marvel universe in a parallel world. And encountered OOA during the operation. The powerful OOA directly wiped out the guild members who participated in the action. And he started to invade the guild and the main god space in the opposite direction by following the trend. The main god space had to be completely disconnected from the small plane where this guild was stationed to prevent itself from being invaded. As for the remaining guild members, they naturally became abandoned children. OOA wreaked havoc on the plane where the guild was located, killing all members. Ran Wujiu, a pure novice, is no exception. Being stared at by OOA and then flying into ashes. I just don't know why. He did not completely lose his soul, but instead traveled back to the world full of birds. He has been speculating since waking up that his soul was signed on the contract of the main divine space. Since I haven't lost my soul, maybe I can return to space. At night, I couldn't help but give it a try. That's also why I faced Zhonghai before. Ran Wujiu only knocked him 500 yuan. If this space cannot be used, then stabilize Zhonghai for 500 yuan. Ran Wujiu will bring his parents' certificates to work safety tomorrow. Send Zhonghai and the Jia family directly in. But if the space is still usable. With cheats, Ran Wujiu is determined to personally play these beasts to the fullest. Only then can one relieve the hatred in one's heart. The good news is that there is still room to return. Bad news, only a partial response. What comes back is that this place that has been ravaged by OOA has almost turned into ruins. The guild garrison plane that is also disconnected from the main god space. Fortunately, in order to facilitate the management of the base, the upper echelons of the guild invested heavily in purchasing an intelligent operating system. Now let's see how many usable materials this system can find through self-inspection. When Ran Wujiu looked at this ruins with some boredom. The prompt sound is on. Detected Administrator 9,527 private assets, would you like to withdraw them immediately? Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 6. Master Apprentice Nightclub. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Private assets. Ran Wujiu was taken aback for a moment. When the guild was destroyed, he was still a rookie who only participated in one beginner mission. What private assets can there be? Ran Wujiu reached out his hand and extracted. A faint light flashed before my eyes, and an antique ring fell from the air. I fell into the palm of my hand. Ran Wujiu suddenly realized. I almost forgot. When he first joined the guild provided him with a newcomer gift package. This storage ring has about 10 cubic meters of space. Ran Wujiu had not yet had a chance to open it when he encountered an OOA invasion. Gah! I didn't expect to start over and get it again. Ran Wujiu sighed and put the ring on his finger. Then raise your hand. The ring projects a halo, revealing 2 items stored inside. This is the basic gift package prepared by the guild for newcomers. Firstly, there is a small bottle of transparent potion. The serum drug of the American hip warrior, modified type 7. Comprehensively improve the physical fitness of users. Note: the improved version of one of the most famous potions in the diverse world completely eliminates negative effects. And no additional radiation is required, and the corresponding effect is slightly weaker than the original drug. Comment: I can play with you for most of the day. Good thing. Without hesitation, Ran Wujiu took out the potion and swallowed it. An invisible energy begins to spread as the medicine enters the body, rapidly improving one's physical fitness. Ran Wujiu could feel his bones trembling and his muscles slowly wriggling as if they had come to life. The joints make a clicking sound, and the whole body feels unbearable pain and itching. But all of this only lasted for less than a minute. Ran Wujiu's body calmed down. He clenched his fist lightly and suddenly punched the air in front of him. Endless strength converged from the whole body to the fist. Pop. A crisp sound of breaking the wind came. Good guy. Ran Wujiu grinned. If this punch goes down, ordinary people will really die. Be careful when dealing with people in the future, don't accidentally kill a certain beast. Then there's no need to play. Ran Wujiu raised his hand again, allowing the ring to project something else. That is a white circular stone with light blue twisted runes painted on it. Hearthstone. Note: teleport the caster back to the binding location. Current binding location. Unbound. Note: the effect is better when combined with Holy Shield. Another good thing. Ran Wujiu nodded. This thing is used well and can achieve many magical effects. He withdrew the projection and looked around, revealing a wasteland that was not particularly attractive. I had to check the guild system again. Current self-inspection progress 0.01% according to the priority testing requirements. The following living support materials have been identified. Drinking water is 17.5 tons. 4.95 tons of grain. 1.45 tons of meat. 0.62 tons of grease. 0.14% of medical supplies. Ran Wujiu listened to the system's report and was overjoyed. Surprisingly, there are so many daily necessities. On second thought, it's normal. After all, there used to be nearly 10,000 guild members stationed here. In addition to guild members, there are also many hired NPCs responsible for providing various services. These NPCs have more members than guild members. To maintain the consumption of so many mouths, perhaps the most hoarded items here are various daily necessities. Even if OOA destroyed some of it back then, it shouldn't have been much. I don't think he would care about these things either. After all, it's hard to imagine an OOA brawling over a bag of grain or 2 pounds of steak. It's all cheaper for me now. Ran Wujiu thought to himself. The outside world is currently in an era of food scarcity. Grain is more precious than anything else, it is a hard currency that cannot be harder. Thinking of this, Ran Wujiu instructed the system to directly categorize and organize the materials that had already been self-checked. Open the ring space on your own and start loading supplies inside. Rice, white noodles, various meats, canned goods, oil and salt seasonings, etc. Ran Wujiu stuffed the 10 cubic meter ring space full. This is when Ran instructed the guild system to continue self-checking. Leaving silently, leaving the guild space. As the command was issued, Ran Wujiu's eyes darkened. Returning once again to the world full of birds on their own con. He lifted the blanket and raised his hand. Looking at the already filled storage ring in his hand, he laughed silently. Brother, now it can be considered as cheating on the account. He shook his hand and a bottle of beer appeared in his hand. Pop open the lid, Ran Wujiu lifted the bottle and took a long sip. Great. After drinking beer in a few sips, Ran Wujiu lay in bed and closed his eyes with satisfaction. In less than half a minute, it opened again. Lying down all day during the day, I am not tired at all. Another cheat was successfully credited in the evening. Ran Wujiu was so excited that he couldn't sleep anymore. But in the middle of the night, he had nothing to do but toss and turn in bed and endure the time. I'm feeling anxious. Suddenly, I heard the outer gate open and heard a creaking sound. Then a faint sound of footsteps came. Obviously, someone entered the yard from outside. Who could it be? It's late at night. Someone came back from going to the bathroom. No, it's -10 degrees outside in the winter. I'm not afraid of going out to the bathroom and freezing hard, so I won't be able to come back. Not all of them have taken strengthening potions like themselves, which are not harmful to cold and heat. The people in the courtyard all put a toilet in their own houses. Go pour it out the next morning. Ran Wujiu's idle boredom simply leaped up. Come to the door and look out through the crack in the door. Under the faint moonlight, a young man was shining a flashlight. He is sneaking towards the middle courtyard, whispering softly while walking. Unfortunately, today's luck is also too bad. It turned out to be him, and Ran Wujiu immediately recognized this person. Jia Dongxu. He probably ran out again to gamble with people. He is the only young person in this courtyard who has this hobby. These days, most families have to count the pots when eating. It's good if you can barely fill your stomach. Where is there any extra money to gamble? And Jia Dongxu has a big family. He is the only one who takes the quantity. It should not have been more difficult than others. But he only has this hobby. I can't help it anymore. There are always a few days in a month, even if you secretly collect some scraps from the workshop to exchange money. We also need to gather with a group of fox friends and dog friends to make a bet. Sometimes with good luck, one can win. Most of the time, it's like losing all the money and coming back feeling disheartened. Sometimes when you lose too much, your salary is not enough for your family. Just licking his face and borrowing from Zhonghai. In order to facilitate the control of Jia Dongxu, Zhonghai asked him to retire for himself in the future. I would hardly refuse him either. Today is the same, I have some extra money on hand. Jia Dongxu couldn't help but gamble with a group of friends. I lost all my money and didn't come back until late at night. After seeing him, Ran Wujiu lost interest. Everyone knows about Jia Dongxu's hobby of courtyard houses. It's not surprising either. Ran Wujiu is preparing to go back and continue lying in bed to endure time. Suddenly, I heard Jia Dongxu let out a suppressed scream of surprise. Who? What's going on? Is there anyone else? Ran Wujiu quietly widened the crack in the door and looked over. I saw Jia Dongxu hunched down and pointed his flashlight directly at the hallway from the front yard to the middle courtyard. The flashlight shone on a figure. The figure let out a cold snort and walked out of the hallway. Jia Dongxu's flashlight swept over the person's face. Illuminated the face of that person. It's actually Zhonghai. Zhonghai reached out to block in front of him. Speak softly to Jia Dongxu. Quickly turn off the flashlight, shake your eyes. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 7. Eat me and throw flames. You are listening at novel full.audio. So it's master, I haven't slept yet. Jia Dongxu turned off his flashlight. A casual conversation. Zhonghai doesn't feel sleepy, he can't sleep at all. Today, Ran Wujiu knocked away 500 yuan, and in a fit of anger, he smashed his job again. Lying in bed at night. I am both worried about money and hungry. Rolling back and forth on the bed like pancakes, unable to sleep. As soon as I thought of the way Ran Wujiu was shouting out from an old household. I hate it so much that my teeth itch. I have made up my mind that I must seek revenge and come back. But when he was asked to shovel snow before, he almost saved his life. Zhonghai thought to himself that he couldn't bully Ran Wujiu in the courtyard in the short term. Now we have to find a solution at the steel rolling mill. Thinking of this, Zhonghai simply put on his clothes and got up. I'm going to discuss with my disciple Jia Dongxu. Let Jia Dongxu go find his fox friends and dog friends. Go find fault with Ran Wujiu like before. Take the opportunity to repair Ran Wujiu thoroughly. It's best to get back the loss of 500 yuan. After knocking on the door of the Jia family, he was told that Jia Dongxu had not yet returned home. Zhonghai is aware of Jia Dongxu's gambling habit. I simply walked around the yard, inspecting it while waiting for Jia Dongxu to come back. Sure enough, it didn't take long. Jia Dongxu really came back. Did you go gambling again? You're not afraid of being caught by the patrol team. Zhonghai feels a bit resentful that iron cannot be made into steel. On the other hand, Jia Dongxu's flaw also makes him more dependent on himself. So he didn't say much either. But instead, he mentioned his intention to rectify Ran Wujiu. Tell your friends to find a time to repair that bastard Ran Wujiu. Upon hearing this, Jia Dongxu realized that Zhonghai did not blame himself for gambling. Immediately let go of your heart. No problem, I promise to complete the task, he said with a pat on his chest. However, master, it's important to be considerate when asking someone for help, isn't it? Jia Dongxu rubbed his hands and spoke with a furrowed expression. I had a really bad luck tonight. I don't have many children left, why don't you, master? Jia Dongxu reached out his hand and made a gesture of rubbing money. Zhonghai snorted. He was already prepared. Take out 2 large bills from your pocket and hand them to Jia Dongxu. Not many children. I think you don't have a single child, do you? Take it, let them do it discreetly this time, but be ruthless in their actions. It would be best if you could break that little Wang's arm and leg. If it's done, I'll give you another reward. This is the first time Jia Dongxu has seen Zhonghai so generous. Coincidentally strange, I understood Zhonghai's requirements as soon as I heard them. It seems that this guy has angered you, master. What did he do? Zhonghai certainly cannot say that he has been cleaned up by Ran Wujiu. With a pretentious attitude, he turned around and left. It's none of your business, don't inquire. Remember to ask them to be hidden. Jia Dongxu stuffed 2 large banknotes into his pocket. Following behind Zhonghai, he repeatedly promised, don't worry, master. No problem. The 2 of them, one in front and one behind, crossed the aisle and entered the courtyard. Go home separately. But he didn't know that Ran Wujiu in the front yard had carefully observed their every move. I understand. What a great Zhonghai. Ran Wujiu pinched his chin and said, it's tough enough. I thought of a plan to retaliate against me overnight. If it weren't for me cheating on my account, I might have been exposed. Ran Wujiu now truly experienced the spiciness of Zhonghai. As the saying goes, it is strong to start first and suffer later. Ran Wujiu clapped his hands and decided to give Zhonghai a big gift now, buddy. He turned around and came to the table. I picked up the beer bottle that I had just finished drinking. I have taken a kerosene lamp that has not been moved for a long time. Pour a little white sugar out of the storage ring. Find another piece of rag. I simply pounded the drum a few times. In less than a minute, a simple burning bottle is ready. Ran Wujiu carried the bottle and tiptoed through the aisle. Ignite the rag on the bottleneck and raise your hand. Don't even look, just turn around and leave. He has confidence in his current physical fitness. Throw it wherever you say, it's impossible to miss it. The burning bottle, with a hint of flames, smashed through the window glass of Zhonghai's bedroom with a bang. Falling on the desk next to the window. The beer bottle shattered with a bang on the hard solid wood table. The kerosene inside splashed and was immediately ignited. The whole table burned fiercely. Zhonghai has just returned to his room and is lying in bed, not yet asleep. Staring at Jia Dongxu and his friends as they finished cleaning up Ran Wujiu. How can one step forward to pull the skewers and calmly rectify Ran Wujiu? Suddenly, I felt a glimmer of fire coming from the corner of my eye. And it's getting brighter and brighter. He hasn't realized what's going on yet. I heard a crisp click, and the window was smashed into a hole. Then with a bang, as if exploding, the table by the window caught fire. The firelight instantly illuminated the bedroom of Zhonghai's family. Ah, what's wrong? Fire. Aunt E was also awakened. At the sight of the flames all over the house, I screamed in fear. Zhonghai didn't care about her. He has more important situations to deal with. When the burning bottle breaks. Not only did it ignite the entire desk. Several strands of flames splashed onto the Kong from the desktop. Falling on the surface of the quilt. Zhonghai hurriedly reached out to extinguish these small flames. I slapped a few times, but not only did I fail to extinguish the flames. On the surface of the quilt, it burned fiercely. And during the tapping, I don't know what it is, with a sticky touch. Stained on Zhonghai's palm. Along with it, his palms ignited. Actually, it was Ran Wujiu, this bad guy, who added a small amount of white sugar to the kerosene stove. How did Zhonghai know about this? As the fire on the quilt grew stronger and stronger, it couldn't be extinguished. He could only endure the pain and reached out to push the entire blanket down from the Kong. Aunt E on the side finally stopped screaming and trembled as she descended to the ground. Barefoot, he rushed out of the door, shouting while running. Someone, put out the fire. Hurry up, someone. Actually, there's no need for her to shout. When the beer bottle broke the glass just now, many people in the courtyard were awakened by the shock. Especially the Jia family across the street. Jia Dongxu sat on the Kong without even taking off his clothes. I heard the sound of broken glass on the opposite side. He casually looked up and saw the blazing flames of the Zhonghai family. Hurry up and wrap your clothes around your body. Jump off the Kong and run outside. He started shouting while running and pulling his throat. Put out the fire, come and have someone put out the fire quickly. Soon, the entire yard became lively. Everyone rushed to the courtyard, carrying pots and pans. Fortunately, there is a pressure well in the middle courtyard. Jia Dongxu and Zhou take turns pressing water. Others filled the container and rushed to the window of Zhonghai's house. It's like throwing a splash into the room. The fire was extinguished in a few moments. We have to wait until Ran Wujiu, who deliberately procrastinates behind, comes to the courtyard to take a look. Zhonghai and his wife stood outside the door wearing close-fitting autumn clothes. Frozen to the point of shivering all over. In the middle of the room is a quilt thrown down from the Kong by Zhonghai. It has been completely burned to ashes. The solid wood desk next to the ashes has still been burned. This will barely leave a few pieces of wreckage. The room was splashed with a lot of water by everyone. The black wreckage drifted back and forth on the water surface. The situation was bleak with a hint of humor. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 8. Jia Dongxu leading the way as a teacher. You are listening at novel full.audio. The neighbors are currently surrounding Zhonghai and his wife. I have a lot of questions about how the fire started. I asked if the two of them were injured. I have a question about what to do next. Standing out of the bangs, with a stomach full. Raise your hands to signal everyone to calm down. At the same time, he opened his mouth and said, "Don't make any noise, everyone. I am grandpère, and I will arrange everything. Lao Yi's family is temporarily unable to stay. Qin Huiru, Take Aunt E to the backyard and find the old lady to deal with for the night. Lao E, Lu Haizhong glanced around and stared at Hiyuzhu. Silly Zhu, you live alone in one room. Let Lao E squeeze with you tonight. Hiyuzhu scratched his head in the crowd. Okay, Grandpa E, let's make ends meet tonight. Lu Haizhong continued to command the crowd. A few people, Jia Dongxu, and the Yen brothers, you guys big and small. Help me tidy up this room. At least scoop out this puddle of water, otherwise it will freeze tomorrow. Find some boards or something and cover this window. The others had nothing to do and went back to sleep first. Don't delay starting work tomorrow. Alright, let's all take action. Lu Hai learned from the posture of the factory leaders in their usual mobilization meetings. Wave your hand to everyone. Signal everyone to take action now. Everyone is about to move. But I couldn't help but hear Zhonghai roar. Wait a moment. No one is allowed to move. Lu Haizhong looked at Zhonghai in confusion. Lao E. What are you waiting for? Don't you feel cold in the middle of the night? Hurry up and warm up on the silly pillar Kong. Zhonghai shook his head, his whole body trembling, but it wasn't because of the cold. I saw him slowly straighten his body and extend his hand, pointing directly at Ran Wujiu standing in the crowd watching the excitement. Get him arrested for me. Ah. Silly-eyed in the bangs. Everyone also looked like a monk-in-law who couldn't figure it out. Ran Wujiu knew that Zhonghai was doubting himself. But he wasn't worried and didn't catch him at the moment. Zhonghai actually has no choice but to suspect that Ran Wujiu is not at all responsible. The entire burning bottle, except for the bottle. Everything else is flammable and has been completely burned. The only possible evidence left is the fingerprints on the beer bottle. But Ran Wujiu wiped the bottle several times with gloves after making the burning bottle. Even if there is any residue, it is difficult to say whether it will still remain after being burned by intense fire. Ran Wujiu estimated that with the current technical investigation methods of work safety, I want to find evidence to link the burning bottle to myself. It's impossible at all. So in the face of Zhonghai's clamor for someone to arrest him, Ran Wujiu was not panicked. Instead, he had a playful expression on his face. What do you mean, Grandpa E? Why are you catching me? Zhonghai's face was pitch black, and it was unclear whether it was set on fire or frozen. What does that mean? You set this fire in my house, right? Zhonghai looked at Ran Wujiu and said firmly. He personally experienced and knew that someone had thrown a burning bottle in. Ignite the desk and blankets at home. But he doesn't know exactly who it is. So I've been pondering since just now. Who on earth, with such a great hatred towards him, would use such a means as setting fire? The first thing that came to mind was Ran Wujiu. The reason is also very sufficient. This morning, Ran Wujiu almost froze to death in the courtyard due to his punishment. This is a life and death feud. Although Ran Wujiu has already received a ceiling fee of 500 yuan. But who knows if that's his way of confusing himself. If Ran Wujiu could read Zhonghai's thoughts, it's almost like applauding for him. After all, Zhonghai really guessed right. The onlookers all widened their eyes and looked at Ran Wujiu on the outside. Surprisingly, it's him. It's unlikely, why did he set fire when he had nothing to do? It's not impossible, I heard that the Ran family is a well-known underdog in the steel rolling mill. And isn't Grandpa E always punishing him for cleaning? Maybe he's going to retaliate against Grandpa E. That makes sense. Ran Wujiu listened to the discussions of these people and reluctantly pursed his lips. These people are also too blindly following and have no independent opinions. They believe everything Zhonghai says. However, Ran Wujiu will not admit it. He looked innocently at Zhonghai. Grandpa E, this is too much. You can't blame me just because your own house caught fire, you're speechless. You said I set the fire, do you have any evidence? Everyone also turned their heads to look at Zhonghai. Yeah, there's evidence. Without evidence, we can't take people casually. Zheng. Zhonghai's words are stuck. That's when I realized that speculation is speculation, and he doesn't have any evidence at all. Zhonghai is not afraid either. He made up his mind to take down Ran Wujiu first. Wait for it to be delivered to the police station, and have Director Zhang give Ran Wujiu some ruthless tactics. Under Sankey, he naturally recruited. Thinking of this, Zhonghai raised his hand. In the entire courtyard, you have the greatest opinion of me. There won't be anyone else besides you. As for the evidence, once I report it to work safety, they will naturally find it. After speaking, Zhonghai gave Jia Dongxu a glance. Everyone listen to me, first arrest him, so that he doesn't take responsibility and flee. Jia Dongxu received a signal from Zhonghai and immediately stood up. He shook his fist twice in front of Ran Wujiu. Kid, be sensible and obediently surrender. Otherwise, buddy, take action and be careful not to kill you. Ran Wujiu chuckled inwardly. Jia Dongxu even thought he was the young man he had beaten up before. There was a deliberate expression of panic on his face. What do you want to do? I'm warning you. You have no right to arrest me. If you dare to touch me, I will rebel. Jia Dongxu laughed heartily. He has never seen Ran Wujiu, a defeated general under his command. Watching Ran Wujiu solemnly say that he wanted to resist. Jia Dongxu thinks it's quite interesting. Intentionally extending his fist, he punched Ran Wujiu on the shoulder. I'm touching you now, what can you do? Ha! He proudly tilted his head and tilted his eyes. Looking at Ran Wujiu full of provocation. Ran Wujiu pretended to be pushed back by his punch. The tone in his mouth became scattered. I will really resist, please don't touch me anymore. The onlookers looked at Ran Wujiu, who was both strong on the outside and capable on the inside, and still had to persevere. Watching the excitement one by one is not a big deal, waiting to see his performance after being knocked down by Jia Dongxu. Jia Dongxu watched Ran Wujiu's increasingly insecure performance. I am even more proud and proud. He tilted his head and shoulders. Just like a little thug on the street. Shaking his body under the gaze of everyone, he walked up to Ran Wujiu. Reached out and patted Ran Wujiu's face. As he patted and spoke, you. Ah. I haven't captured Ran Wujiu's face yet. Jia Dongxu suddenly started howling at the top of his throat. Everyone was startled and looked over carefully. Only then did he realize that Ran Wujiu had reached out and pinched Jia Dongxu's wrist. Although it seemed that Ran Wujiu was just holding on to Jia Dongxu's wrist. Jia Dongxu howled as if he had been bitten by a fierce beast. The one who called it was a pitiful one. Even the body bowed like shrimp. Ran Wujiu changed his previous lack of confidence. I've warned you twice, but you just won't listen. Now I'll show you what I can do with you. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 9. The Bi Dou Suppresses Sentient Beings, Little Regret Strategy. You are listening at novel full.audio. Ran Wujiu finished speaking. Pinch Jia Dongxu's wrist and gently press it. Jia Dongxu felt like his wrist was about to be crushed. While howling, he bent down and leaned forward with Ran Wujiu's strength. Attempt to relieve pain. Ran Wujiu looked at his face approaching. A cold smile. Release the pinched wrist and raise your palm. He slapped Jia Dongxu in the face. Of course, he has a plan in mind, given his current physical condition. If you put in all your strength, you can directly fan Jia Dongxu's head out. That scene was too scary. So it only took 2 points of force at most. With a crisp snap, Jia Dongxu's mournful cry came to an end. I saw him roll his eyes and without saying a word, he collapsed to the ground with a loud bang. There was no movement at all. With Jia Dongxu's silence, the entire quadrangle suddenly fell silent. The onlookers unconsciously widened their eyes, wandering between Ran Wujiu and Jia Dongxu on the ground. Only Jia Zhang, who felt sorry for her son, finally realized at this moment. He started to howl with his mouth open. Dongxu, my son. She howled and rushed towards Ran Wujiu. You little Wang, who has a father but no mother, pulled out the eggs. You dare to hit my son. She raised her hands and scratched Ran Wujiu's face. I'll scratch you to death. Ran Wujiu is happy now. Heart said I haven't found you yet. It was you, the devout old lady, who wanted to take over my house back then. Later, it was only then that Zhonghai resorted to using biased tactics against me. Since you, the culprit, are looking for death. Hey buddy, that's it for you. Thinking of this, Ran Wujiu reached out his hand, shaking his hand at Jia Zhang, who was rushing towards the wild boar. After the same loud bang, Jia Zhang immediately followed in the footsteps of her precious son. Without saying a word, he fell asleep straight down. Ran Wujiu slapped 2 people in a row and directly knocked them down. The onlookers around now have all witnessed his strength. They silently took a step back with great tacit understanding. Ran Wujiu is a bit far away. Now, Zhonghai, who was still pointing at Ran Wujiu, immediately appeared. Of course, no one is willing to follow Zhonghai's instructions to capture Ran Wujiu now. Everyone is not foolish. The strength demonstrated by Ran Wujiu is just a few more slaps. We can clean up all this group of people. Everyone has no relatives or connections with Zhonghai, so there is no need to work hard for him. Zhonghai has also become restless now, although he stubbornly raised his hand and pointed at Ran Wujiu. Underneath my feet, I instinctively took a step back. He is also afraid of being beaten. Of course, my mouth is quite tough. You dare to commit violence and hit people in front of so many people. I want to report work safety, arrest you, and judge you. Ran Wujiu was too lazy to listen to his nonsense and took a step forward. Grasp his outstretched hand. Fold down hard. Pain, pain, pain. Zhonghai finally knew how his disciple Jia Dongxu felt when he was just pinched by Ran Wujiu. No wonder he howled so miserably. This horse is clamped like a hydraulic press. Zhonghai's painful forehead was sweating. The body involuntarily squats down. Catch me. Why do you, an old man, catch me? Based on your age, why don't you lose face? He exerted force on his hands as he asked. Zhonghai was so painful that he was almost lying on the ground. Still not letting go. Don't try to deny it. It must be. You set it on. Fire. Ran Wujiu folded his wrist into 90 degrees. I'll ask again, where's the evidence? Without evidence, this is called false accusation, it's called defamation. Zhonghai was so painful that he couldn't even speak. Where else can I answer his words? I can't bear to see the bangs on the side anymore. Although watching Zhonghai being cleaned up made him feel quite happy inside. After all, Zhonghai is also a courtyard master. He felt that Ran Wujiu was also trying to save the face of this second uncle. So he straightened his stomach and took a step forward, trying to stop Ran Wujiu. Ran Wujiu turned his head and glared at Lu Haizhong. Grandpa Lu, what's up with you? A stir in the bangs immediately triggered a reaction. Even Ran Wujiu, in his current state, is no match for him. If this were like the Jia family's mother and son being slapped and knocked to the ground. What's the face of Uncle Heir? So he quickly stopped his steps and gave a smirk. I'm fine, it's a bit cold. I'll move and warm up. Sigh. Seeing him like this, some people in the crowd cheered. It was Ran Wujiu.It who walked in from outside the crowd. Xiao Lao-yi was just scared and a bit confused. Can you let him go first? You see, in the middle of the night, Lao-yi didn't even wear a cotton jacket. If this freezes into your hands, it would be troublesome. Ran Wujiu.It spoke softly as soon as he came up. It doesn't mean that Ran Wujiu shouldn't have taken action against Zhonghai. I only emphasize that Zhonghai is not wearing a coat and is afraid of freezing. Ran Wujiu looked at Zhonghai, who was both painful and cold, squatting on the ground trembling. I want to kill him in front of everyone's eyes. I still have to be implicated and can't scratch. And in my memory, although Ran Wujiu.It likes to take some small advantages. It seems like I haven't done anything serious yet. At least I haven't harmed myself. I have heard Ran Wujiu.It's lessons for several years in school. I can also be considered his student. So, taking advantage of Ran Wujiu.It's words, he let go and threw Zhonghai away. Okay, give teacher Ran some face. He bent down, just like Jia Dongxu did to him earlier. Reached out and patted Zhonghai's face. Remember, you can eat things indiscriminately, you can't talk nonsense. Especially things without evidence. He straightened up and spat a mouthful of phlegm to the side. Bad luck, watch the excitement in the middle of the night. Almost falsely accused as an arsonist. I'd better hurry back to sleep. After speaking, he didn't care about anyone else and went back to his front yard home on his own. While walking, secretly regretting. Why didn't you burn the old guy to death? He clearly remembers that the Kong in his hometown was close to the window. How did it turn into a desk? Ran Wujiu didn't know that the Kong of Zhonghai's family has always been leaning against the inside. In his memory, the Kong was under the window in the past summer. Zhonghai built a temporary bed made of wooden boards under the window to cool down. Sleep cool. But in winter, I switched back to sleeping on the Kong. A new desk has been placed in front of the window for easy storage. Ran Wujiu rarely goes to the courtyard on a regular basis, occasionally glancing at it and remembering the split. But it's okay, Ran Wujiu thought to himself. In the future, there will be more time to play slowly. After returning home, he collapsed on the Kong and slept contentedly. In the courtyard, everyone watched as Ran Wujiu left. The discussion immediately exploded. Today's farce is really exciting. First, Zhonghai's family was burned down. Then Ran Wujiu, who is usually located at the bottom of a courtyard house. Being infamous, always being pulled out for criticism. The young man who often cleans the courtyard suddenly rises. Zhonghai, this quadrangle master. And the most domineering and ferocious Jia family in the middle courtyard cleaned up. It surprised the neighbors. Many neighbors are dissatisfied with Zhonghai in their daily lives. The Jia family's mother and son, who committed crimes in the courtyard, are full of resentment. I secretly applauded Ran Wujiu's actions today. Just criticism on the surface. After all, Zhonghai is standing in front of him. Everyone knows his temperament to some extent, how could he possibly offend him in front of him? Everyone is pretending to defend Zhonghai. This Ran Wujiu is too much. That's right, how can we take action against an old man? Yes, it's just a false accusation, defamation, it's not right either. Isn't it just a suspicion that he set fire and committed the crime of hitting people? What you said. It's not very easy to evaluate. Hey, who the hell set the fire to? I didn't know, it wasn't me anyway. Mr. E must be very angry. No, look, it's shaking like a sieve. I think it's freezing, my face has turned blue. Amidst the chatter of the crowd, Zhonghai suddenly stared. Open your mouth and spit out a mouthful of fresh blood. There is still a yellow tooth in the blood. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 10. Jia Men's twin heroes have deep eyes and virtuous heavenly sovereigns. You are listening at novel full.audio. Originally, Ran Wujiu had just warned Zhonghai. When patting his cheek. The strength is not light. I knocked out one of Zhonghai's teeth. But I don't know if it's freezing or getting angry. Zhonghai was not aware at that time. When my teeth bleed, I can't wrap them anymore. I even vomited blood from my gums. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his bangs finally recovered from the embarrassment just now. Feeling secretly pleased in his heart, he anxiously stepped forward and supported Zhonghai. Clapping Zhonghai on the back. Lao Yi, how are you doing? Are you okay? Zhonghai doesn't even want to talk to him. Heart says, are you blind when you step on a horse? Can't you see what I look like? Do you think I have anything to do? Ran Wujiu.It is somewhat more reliable than Lu Haizhong. He commanded He pillar, you and Lao Lu should quickly take Lao Yi to the Kong to warm up. Get some more hot water for Lao Yi to wipe. He stepped forward and helped Lu Haizhong to the side, putting Zhonghai into He room. Ran Wujiu.It instructed the neighbors. Everyone else, go back and rest. Everyone be strict about tonight's matter and don't go out talking nonsense. Tomorrow, the three of us will discuss how to handle it. The neighbors left in twos and threes, each returning home. 2 people still lying on the ground were exposed. Ran Wujiu.It was taken aback. How did you forget these 2 people? No one even reminded me. If these 2 stay frozen in the yard like this all night, they will have to be buried in Taoran Pavilion tomorrow. Ran Wujiu.It turned around and called for someone. Let's take the Jia family. Before I could finish speaking, I saw my neighbors walking slowly and laughing just now. Just like suddenly discovering a dog chasing behind her, Sayako ran away completely. I don't blame the neighbors for their behavior. The Jia family is really in the yard and there are not many people to see. Especially the Jia Zhang family. Being sharp and sarcastic, causing trouble, and throwing tantrums and rolling around is called a good hand. Many neighbors have suffered losses from her. In the long run, everyone can be said to be avoiding Jia Zhang's family. How come these 2 fell to the ground without anyone mentioning a word for half a day? It's not because nobody wants to get involved in this stinky mess. At this moment, I heard that Ran Wujiu.It was going to ask someone to help the Jia family. One by one, they run faster than rabbits. Ran Wujiu.It also reacted as he looked at their backs. Even he himself doesn't want to bother with these 2 people on the ground. But let them freeze in the snow like this, Ran Wujiu.It really can't do it. Just as he was worried, he saw Jia Dongxu's head twitching. Then I saw Jia Dongxu sneakily swinging his head left and right. Quietly observing the surroundings. So when Ran Wujiu.It called someone just now. This guy has actually woken up. But first of all, he saved face and felt ashamed that he had been knocked unconscious by Ran Wujiu's slap. Secondly, I'm afraid that if Ran Wujiu still hasn't left, I might get up and get beaten. So why not just lie down and pretend to be dizzy? At this moment, I heard the surroundings quiet down and there was no movement at all. I just looked around and didn't see anyone. So he felt relieved and stood up with his hands propped up on the ground, enduring the pain and grinning. Upon turning around, I found Ran Wujiu.It looking at me with a playful expression on his face. My face turned red with excitement. But it's okay. Half of his face was slapped up by Ran Wujiu, causing it to swell up. An already congested and vibrant patch. I can't see much difference either. Oh, Uncle San, he hasn't rested yet. Ran Wujiu.It said that if it weren't for you, I would have gone to bed long ago. He didn't have much to say to Jia Dongxu, he nodded. Okay, since you're awake, then take your mother back and rest on your own. Jia Dongxu lowered his head and suddenly realized. My mother is still lying on the ground. Hurry up and squat down to push Jia and Zhang. Mom, wake up quickly. Before finishing speaking, Jia Zhang opened her eyes. A pair of small eyeballs rolled around and asked. Did Xiao Wang pull the egg and leave? Okay, it turns out that Jia Zhang was even more sober than Jia Dongxu. She was already rough-skinned and thick-skinned. Because she was a woman, Ran Wujiu was afraid of slapping her to death. When I slapped her, I instinctively put in a lot of effort. So she was actually more sober than Jia Dongxu. But she is an old shrew who has been around for years. My heart is much deeper than Jia Dongxu's. Never show your head until you have made up your mind to be absolutely safe. So I kept lying still. At this moment, it's my own son coming to push, if it's Ran Wujiu.It. She won't even open her eyes. Ran Wujiu.It watched the performance of the two on the side, deeply impressed. I spat in my heart. Turn around and leave. Heart said I'm really a fool, actually worried about the two living treasures. He hasn't taken 2 steps yet. I heard Jia Zhang complaining behind me. Damn Yen Lao Kai, I don't know how to help. I have no conscience at all, why should I be the third uncle? Ran Wujiu.It was speechless and quickly quickened his pace. While silently reciting, I can't hear, I can't hear. Don't have the same view as a shrew. He quickly returned to the front yard. Before opening the door and entering the house, Ran Wujiu.It glanced at Ran Wujiu's house across from him. Suddenly, a thought came to mind. This quadrangle is about to change. Early the next morning. Ran Wujiu was still asleep when the door started banging. He lifted the blanket and casually put on his work clothes. While shouting outside. Stop knocking, I heard you. You're getting dressed. He put on his cotton pants in a few pairs and shouted while putting on his shoes. All right, come on in. The door creaked and was pushed open. Walking into a work safety officer wearing a brown-green cotton police uniform and a liberation hat. Zhonghai put a bandage on his right hand and hung it on his chest. Following behind Gong'an, a pair of bloodshot eyes glared fiercely at Ran Wujiu. He stayed up all night last night. After all, some people have thrown burning bottles at home. Then he was scolded by Ran Wujiu in front of everyone in the courtyard. Grandpa Yi's face fell to the ground. He can't sleep with such a big heart. Lying on He Yuju's Kong, listening to He Yuju's snoring with open eyes, I endured. Until I heard the rooster crowing outside. Immediately get up and go back to the house to find a few old clothes wrapped around your body. I went straight to the police station. In order to pretend to be pitiful, I also found a doctor on the way to put a bandage on my wrist and hang it. When they arrived at the police station, they heard him report that someone had set fire. Take it seriously immediately. The deputy director personally brought 2 veteran workers to the courtyard. Zhonghai also wants to direct them to come directly to arrest Ran Wujiu. He doesn't listen to his work safety. I insisted on going to the scene and conducting a thorough investigation first. I chatted with my neighbors who were getting up one after another. It was only then that I realized that the one in Zhonghai's mouth must be Ran Wujiu, the arsonist. It doesn't seem like there's much suspicion at all. Zhonghai's accusations against him are more based on strong personal emotions. But asking him why he is so certain is Ran Wujiu. What is his motive for setting fire to? Zhonghai couldn't come up with a reason. He certainly can't say that because I bullied him before and almost killed him. And I also paid a sealing fee of 500 yuan for it. If he were to be honest, Ran Wujiu wouldn't know if there was anything wrong. But they must have arrested Zhonghai first and tried him severely. 3 workers, do you obviously have prejudice as an old comrade? They all decided not to pay much attention to him, so as not to be influenced by him in solving the case. As for the evidence, glass fragments were indeed found on site. It has already been burned by intense fire, and no fingerprints can be extracted at all. Of course, there is no comparison with Ran Wujiu. In the eyes of the three workers, the suspicion of Ran Wujiu is actually not greater than that of other neighbors. However, given the strong demands of the informant Zhonghai, the deputy director still decided to come and talk to Ran Wujiu and observe. So he asked the two workers to continue visiting. I followed Zhonghai to the Ran Wujiu family. As soon as he entered the door, Zhonghai looked as if he was about to swallow Ran Wujiu alive. Ran Wujiu was too lazy to bother with him at all. Put on your shoes and greet Gong'an on your own. If you came to see me so early, it must be this old. Oh, no. Mr. E, do you insist that I set fire to his house? He deliberately teased Zhonghai. Sure enough, at the sight of him almost calling out old and desperate, Zhonghai's face turned a little pale again. The new book has set sail, please have more support and suggestions from all the readers. There are flower tickets or something that can support a wave. The author would like to express his gratitude to all the readers and grandfathers here. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th.